You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Good morning. It's 8:06. Nice to have you back here up north on this Friday morning, June 6th. Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls, Parker Olson in Madison Studio A2 at the Civic Media Global HQ. Have you come down from the high of your Whitewater baseball team winning the national championship this week?
You know, Pat, I thought I was, and then I saw some pictures this morning of the little homecoming parade they had yesterday, last night, and I was like, "Ooh, we're national champs. This is kind of cool."
So you did not race back there for the little parade, as you say.
No, I didn't. I had some self-restraint.
Okay.
Figured I should go to bed.
All right. Let's see. I believe I'm sure that I mentioned Dr. Lyerly may be coming by, and I plumb forgot that I believe she has a conflict today, so we will not be talking with her about. It's too bad because one of the last notes I got from her was that I don't know if she was there. I assume she was there, but she might have just told me that the Wisconsin Medical Society had its doctor day at Monona Terrace this week in Madison, and that Assembly Speaker Robin Voss was there, and that he made some crack to these doctors about them needing to do their research. And I had this great question that I wanted to ask Kristen, and it was whether there were any proctologists amongst all the doctors that were in there, so that maybe somebody could finally find whatever bug it is that crawled up Robin Voss's posterior and made him the way that he is, single-handedly preventing the expansion of stable, affordable health care for new moms from 60 days to 12 months. But unfortunately, if there was a proctologist there, we don't know yet.
No.
So Kristen should be here Monday morning at 6:30, and so we'll talk to her more about that and everything else that comes up. Robin Tigerton wants to congratulate you as well, Whitewater, for winning the national championship.
Thank you very much, Rob.
And we want to say again, happy birthday to Rob, because I was looking at the post here that Dr. Lyerly put up all about Rob's birthday and collecting some birthday love. So we appreciate all of that as well. We always like to have everybody joining us by text or in the comment section or anything like that. It just makes everything so much more well-rounded. Mike Clemens is going to be here at the bottom of the hour, and we're going to talk a little bit of sports because there was that big comeback in the NBA Finals Game 1 last night with Indiana never leading in the game until the very end, 0.3 of a second left, Tyrese Halliburton shooting. And then the night before, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals went to overtime, and Edmonton came all the way back to defeat Florida. So Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals is tonight. And so, Parker, what have we learned from this? Don't go to bed early.
Oh, yeah, that too. I've learned that this is definitely going to overtime.
It could, and again, I don't have a problem with that. Well, one overtime.
After that, one overtime is fun. More than that, especially in hockey, because they do the whole 20-minute intermissions between.
Well, the Zambonis got to do Zamboni things.
Oh, I know. It's just it makes it so much longer.
I know. I mean, imagine if in between all the basketball periods, you had to take somebody's Hoover or Eureka, and we're just going to go up and down and vacuum the entire basketball court.
That would be a really good marketing thing. Why didn't one of those robotic vacuums ever get
Roomba?
a deal with?
Oh,
yeah.
why wouldn't you?
That'd be
my
sick.
Gosh, we've hit on something. Roomba, the basketball court. Get a Roomba Zamboni for the basketball courts. Oh, I love this. Tony, unhappy about all the many double-digit comebacks. Very frustrating because he wants them to lose. I assume he's talking about the Pacers.
Yeah.
And that just does not appear. Look, if there's one thing I know about sports, and there's not a lot, but the one thing I know is people going, well, these are small market teams. Nobody's watching. People will watch a Game 7 And so the only thing, all they won is a long series. So they're happy Indiana won because Oklahoma City was the favorite. So as long as this keeps happening and they end up, instead of playing 4 games, play 5, 6, or 7, everybody's going to be very happy.
Yeah.
Today is National Donut Day. It's mentioned in our newsletter. You can head over to upnorthnewswi.com for that link and to learn more about it, including where some national lists put some of Wisconsin's best donut shops at. I don't know that I have one these days. You know, some bakeries have come and gone over the years. I know down there in Madison, Greenbush is a very popular one. I know that it makes some national lists. I don't know about Whitewater, but did you have a favorite place to go get donuts back in the day?
I'm not, as much as I love donuts, I don't know that I've ever like gone out specifically for the purpose of finding a donut. Mm-hmm. Whitewater, what's it called? I think it's Sweet Spot Cafe. I'm not sure if I've ever been there, but everyone says that it's very good.
Okay.
So Sweet Spot
I
Cafe.
would love if people got on either the text line or in the comment section and just gave a shout out to some local donut shops. In Eau Claire, there used to be a place called Hepner's Bakery, which was always good. Some of your local grocery stores, you know, can still make up some good fresh donuts. And I'll say this, and again, I don't mean this with any animus toward the folks here, but there's one chain that's known for its donuts. It's right there in the name. And yet, I have never warmed up to Dunkin' Donuts.
No?
Or now Dunkin', as it's called.
Is it just Dunkin' now? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Well, it's DUNK''N. Because, again, nobody uses full words anymore because you got to text, you know.
Yeah.
BRB, be right back, you know. So Dunkin' Donuts, and yet, on the other hand, the chain that I can't believe had to eventually pare back and downsize, Krispy Kreme. Because I remember when Krispy Kreme donuts were relatively new and when the chain was really expanding.
Yeah.
And those puppies would come right off they'd put that glaze on right out of the fryer. So they were warm and they were gooey. And, I still can't believe there's not one on every corner.
That sounds really nice. I would love some Krispy Kreme.
I know, doesn't it, though? So, anyway, National Donut Day. Again, a little bit more in our newsletter, upnorthnewswi.com. And then you can also follow us on social media. And if you do that, you'll find that there's a story there. I think it was first seen on CNN, and we put it in ours as well, about a Wisconsin artist who, using reclaimed wood, mostly from thrown out furniture, used that wood to create some very artistic logos for every NFL team. And then those wooden logos were on display all throughout Green Bay for the draft at Lambeau Field a few weeks back. And so it's a follow-up story about how that artist's handiwork, again, using the reclaimed wood, all that work is now going to, I think, the NFL headquarters to be displayed there. So you can find that story on our Facebook page. Now, Cassandra's jumping back into the donut debate here, saying Glazers are better, and Tony saying those are amazing. Okay. I'm not going to give you a full-throated endorsement of Glazers. I'm sorry.
Glazers are good.
Yeah. And Alicia's saying we've got a new place in Kimberly called Cheeky Donuts. I like that. Cheeky Donuts. So, who else has got? I'm looking at. You know what? I was so busy looking at one text line that I didn't look at ours. So let me see.
Luke is getting. I believe those must be the donuts from Greenbush.
That it. There is a photo from Luke Mathers on the text line of a box of Greenbush donuts on their way to. Oh my goodness!
I'm very happy.
I can be there in 3 hours. Let me just grab the.
They'll be gone, Pat. And I'm having that whole box.
They will. They'll be so gone. That is very unfortunate. Where was I? Oh, yes, I was talking newsletters because there'll be a weekend edition out as well that I'll be putting together here shortly with some of the top stories of the week. And again, you can head over to upnorthnewswi.com and subscribe to that there as well. There were so many stories that we didn't even get a chance to get to with the Week in Review panel. One that I just want to spout off on briefly. And it's based in a sad story. There was a death in Alaska of somebody climbing a mountain. And in the story, I realized that the New York Times had reverted to what Donald Trump wants to call it, which is Mount McKinley. And it had been Mount McKinley for a while when some white guy came along and named it after a president who never saw it, never visited it, but to honor him. But, for all of its time previously, the indigenous community there had referred to it as Denali. And during the Bush administration, I believe, the name was formally changed back to Mount Denali. But Donald Trump, along with pretending to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, did the same and said this mountain is now renamed Mount McKinley. And I don't know what counts as official and what doesn't count. All I know is the New York Times really disappointed me yesterday by calling it Mount McKinley. And then deeper in the story, it says, a vast majority of climbers on Mount McKinley, whose name was changed from Mount Denali by President Trump this year, attempt to, and blah, 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 so on it goes. I'm like, why? Why even go there with, is that something that a president can just wave their wand and make happen? Because it's going to be changed back. I mean, we can do this all day long, but ultimately it's going to be Denali because most people understand the reason for it and the reason why the Mount McKinley title wasn't appropriate then and isn't now. The new jobless report has come out, and there's some good news and there's some bad news in there. Employers added 139,000 jobs last month, about in line with economists' expectations, and the unemployment rate is at 4.2%. Now, adding 139,000 jobs is nice, but there's also what the Times calls the Doge effect, and that is that the federal government last month alone shed 22,000 jobs. And since January, the federal government has shed nearly 60,000 jobs, probably more when you also look at the ones who were put on administrative leave or who were contractors and their contracts were cut. Now, again, there's a group out there that says, well, this is good. This is shedding government expense, which it is for the short term. And then you look at the services that they were providing, and you look at how things get worse in terms of service, or services aren't provided at all, and then it costs more in the long run to restore them, and you realize where the phrase penny wise but pound foolish came from. This is the Trump effect, the Doge effect of shedding all these folks for short-term gain. And again, I say, it's not like cutting all these jobs is going to put money back into anybody's pockets unless you're a billionaire, because all that money that's not going to pay middle-class people working for or around the government, that money is now just going to go toward tax breaks for the fabulously wealthy. And if you don't believe me when I say you can only shed so many jobs before quality of service struggles, just look at what Elon Musk bought when he bought Twitter and changed it to X. It's a dumpster fire right now. Yesterday was the most time that I'd spent on Twitter or X in about a year. And I left it not just because of Elon Musk and what he did to the company. He let like half the workforce go. The product suffered. And he had no problem putting essentially soft porn on Twitter and putting all kinds of rants from Nazis, and the place has just become a dumpster fire. Still go on time to time because you have to convey the news and the messaging, where folks are, wherever they are. But Twitter's nothing like what it used to be. And what Elon Musk did to Twitter is exactly what Musk and Trump are doing now to your federal government. We'll continue here live from Lake Wissota on a Friday morning, June 6th here, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
The Brewers are back at American Family Field for a long homestand starting tonight with a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres. Coverage begins at 6:35 on stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. Head over to the Civic Media website to learn much more. One of the things that has happened in the age of Trump is we've discovered the Republicans, the conservatives out there who can still hold on to some basic American values of truth and fairness. And so even people with whom we would have vehement disagreements, think of your, Liz Cheney's and things like that, we find common ground from time to time. Here's a group of 4 people, 2 Dems, 2 Republicans, you maybe never thought would be co-authors of an op-ed column. Mandela Barnes, J.B. Holland, a former Attorney General, Mike Tate, the former chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, and former Congressman Scott Klug. And these 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats have put together a column called "We Know How to Fix the Biggest Lie About Wisconsin's Elections." The reality is Wisconsin runs a tight ship throughout the election season, and faith in election integrity is rising. And their point is, especially from the 2 Republicans as much as the 2 Democrats, is that they need to stop, Republicans need to stop spreading the lie that there's some kind of funny business going on in Milwaukee, the so-called late night ballot dump. Again, for folks who maybe missed the basics of this, people are upset and love to spread this conspiracy because election results don't come in from Milwaukee and some of the other larger cities until very late at night, sometimes the middle of the night. That's because they're big places, and it's easier to bring all of the ballots to a central count facility rather than buy a machine. You can buy a machine for your small town. You can buy a couple machines for your larger village. But imagine how much infrastructure would be needed in a city like Milwaukee. And people would say, well, why do you do that? Why don't you just put everything into a smaller number of machines, bring all the ballots there and count them there? That's what they do. And so they bring, and this happens in Green Bay and other cities as well, they bring all the ballots to a central count facility. It still takes a while to count them all because that's still a lot of people. And as a result, numbers aren't available oftentimes until later than smaller communities. That only makes sense. So what can you do about it? Well, one thing you can do is you can begin processing absentee ballots a day earlier. Not counting the ballots. They can all be counted on Election Day. But to process an absentee ballot means to look at the envelope, make sure it came to the right place, is filled out properly, has the witness signature. If all that's right, then you can open it up and then feed that ballot into the machine. So you could start reviewing the absentee ballots the day before so that you could set aside the bad ones, the ones that you're not going to count because there's something irregular about them, and have the rest ready to run through the machine from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. This is simple. This is basic. Everybody understands it. And in the past couple of sessions, there have been bipartisan bills that would allow every place in Wisconsin to begin processing their absentee ballots the day before the election. And the past couple of sessions, a handful of Republicans has stopped it, had said, nope, these bills are not going to pass. And then they go on to spread the lie about the conspiracy, about funny business in Milwaukee with these late night ballot dumps. And so that's why you have now 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats with this column noting how strong election administration has been and how wrong it is that Wisconsin is getting a black eye about these late night ballots and that there is a way to fix this. 76% of voters in a survey they cite want to allow election officials to begin the absentee ballot verification process a day before the election. Voters understand that things are going right in this state, and so the call for reform is clear, they write in this column. Voters want their elections to be safe, transparent, efficient, and consistent. the proposal to begin pre-processing absentee ballots one day earlier, and the push for standardized drop box rules are simple but important ways to address public concerns while reinforcing faith in the electoral system. So again, that is a plea put forward by Mandela Barnes, J.B. Holland, Mike Tate, and Scott Klug. A way to address a conspiracy that it's long past time that this be addressed. Alicia putting on YouTube, passing the early process would take away one of the Republican scare tactics. Yes, Alicia, which is why, unfortunately, even with this column by two esteemed former Republican elected officials and two Democrats, I do have a feeling that this bill might not pass. After all, we're having a tough time getting a bill passed to provide stable, affordable health care to new moms. A political bill about elections, that might be an even taller mountain to climb. Tony putting on, the current standard for drop boxes is that the mayor can take them whenever they want, right? He says, taking a poke at the mayor of Wausau. Yeah, quite possibly. And that thing is still dragging on as well. One more note to tell you about this, also from the Journal Sentinel, an article from Dan Bice about Bill Berrien, the Whitefish Bay businessman, a Republican considering a run for governor. But Dan Bice has been looking at some of his past donations and other activity and notes that Bill Berrien might have a tough time running for governor next year if he chooses to, because he not only donated $33,000 to Nikki Haley in her primary run against Donald Trump last year, he was also quoted back then in the Washington Post as saying, Nikki Haley's more aggressive posture toward Trump was welcomed, as it is communicating the stark choice in front of the party and the country and the need for a generational change in leadership, said Bill Berrien. We'll talk to Mike Clemens about sports coming up next. You're Up North. Welcome back. It's 8:35 on this Friday morning. First, shameless plug for the Civic Media app. If you head over to the app, not only can you text in keywords as part of our Scotty Summer Text to Win contest, and your next chance to do that, by the way, is in the 11 a.m. hour, but you can also send just general text messages to us. But you can also use the voice note feature where you tap that and you record a quick little message to us. If you're able to, throw your name and hometown in there. If you don't want to, you just want to give us your 2 cents on something. Here's one that came in just a bit ago from a listener to WAUK.
These petulant children, Elon and Trump, from the leopards eating each other's faces party, are totally ridiculous. How much did Elon pay to have Trump elected again?
And again, the answer there was $290 million. But that's part of the voice note feature. Feel free to use that. Send us notes anytime. If Parker were going to send us a note, the note would say, I got a donut. And for folks watching on social media, he still hasn't taken a bite out of this thing. But Luke, nice evil laugh. Luke Mathers has made it back from Greenbush and is showing off. Is that, what'd you say it was, a s'mores donut? He can't even talk. It's s'mores it in his face.
It's s'mores, and it's spectacular.
Oh, my gosh. All right. We did ask where your favorite donuts were. Adam jumps up on YouTube and says, Fosdal Bakery in Stoughton has the best donuts, hands down. I looked it up on the website. Yeah, I'd eat those. That is some good stuff here. And from Tony, the aptly named Ashland Baking Company has all sorts of fantastic baked goods. So there you go. We're on National Donut Day. We're just passing things around here. Let's talk about sports for the weekend and bring in Mike Clemens, who will be joining us on a weekly basis to talk about what's happened, what will be happening this weekend. The man's on the road all the time. He's doing all these sports events. And so we've got to start. Oh, wait, I got one more here. Cassandra saying Manderfields in Appleton for donuts. So I got to start by asking Mike, of all of his travels, Mike, do you have a favorite donut place? Good morning. Thanks for being here.
You know, in my hometown of Beloit, there's a place called Old Fashioned Bakery that's been around for 50, 60 years. They do that elephant ear cinnamon crisp kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh, you know. that and that's really dangerous. But no, I love it. And even when you get into San Francisco, you talked about Fisherman's Wharf and the great seafood and everything. But they've got a couple of huge, giant bakeries right down there, by the water, where you can smell the sourdough bread being made on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, I've smelled that there. Oh,
yeah, they should just rename it Carb City.
I believe it. Oh, I'd forgotten all about how good that smells there. That is wonderful. Where do we find you this week? Where are you traveling around to?
Going up to AmFam Field,
Okay.
about 30 minutes from where we live in the Milwaukee area, because the Brewers starting their longest homestand of the season, Pat. And tonight. It's the Brewers against the San Diego Padres. Padres, pretty good team. They're in second place behind the division leader Dodgers over there in the West. And Murph is probably going to go with Chad Patrick tonight on the mound amidst all the other drama he's had this week. Did you see what happened to Brandon Woodruff in his
Yes.
was supposed to be his final rehab? I mean, it's just unbelievable. Brandon Woodruff has not been able to pitch for the Brewers since September of 2023. Then he has the surgery, and he had an ankle problem during this rehab. And then the other night, it was supposed to be his last rehab start. It's the second inning. He's 12 pitches into the game, throws the ball, batter hits it back at him, hits him in the right elbow. He's right-handed. A contusion. He's had it imaged twice this week, but he's back on the IL. And they just can't get their veteran pitcher out there to lead out there. I mean, even help with guys like Freddie Peralta, just being a part of the clubhouse every day and a part of the rotation.
Yes, I mean the presence matters, and I'm sure he and everybody associated with the team is going. A break cannot be caught with this guy.
No,
So
No,
I do fully expect, and I don't mean to be flippant about this, but I will not be surprised if he does finally make it to American Family Field and on his way out to the pitching mound steps on a rake, because these just
that's the way it's going right now.
That's the way
it's going right
goes. So we've got this long homestand coming up, starting with the Padres, and I'd best, before I forget, remind everybody that the pregame starts at 6:35 on stations throughout the Civic Media Radio Network. Head over to the website to learn more. So there's San Diego for the weekend, and then Atlanta Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday's a day game, but then we resume division work going up against the St. Louis Cardinals. So I'm not diminishing the first two series in this homestand, but boy, they'd best not wear out before next Thursday.
No, it'd be nice to win, if they could win all three of those series. But certainly when the Cardinals come here next weekend, Cardinals in second place right now behind the division-leading Cubs. But how about the Brewers just hanging in there, 5-6 games behind Chicago, but still getting through this period? And one of the things that's turned around, I mean, that dramatic grand slam that Christian Yelich had the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
the next day he gets hit, in his right hand with a pitch. And you're thinking, thank God it's not a contusion. And he managed to pop back up, woke up the next morning, the swelling had gone down, and he was back out there again. And then he hit another home run to finish out that series in Cincinnati. They beat the Reds now 12 series in a row with that 9-1 win they had on Wednesday afternoon. A much-needed rest yesterday before they get into a homestand. So they're in pretty good shape. And it's just amazing what Pat Murphy has done, pulling bunnies out of a hat with the
Yes.
rotations of the pitching and coming up with this stuff like, DL Hall, the lefty,
Yeah.
who's a solid pitcher. Everyone was disappointed. Why are they sending Logan Henderson down? The kid has won 3-4 games in a row here to start his career. But then you see DL out there say, okay, this is a grown man out there on the mound. This is a guy who knows what he's doing. So if they can get him going into full rotation, then they'll be positioned to make a run at this thing for the summer months and hopefully into the fall.
I sure hope so. It's good because I'll tell you, up 2 weeks ago or so, I thought, well, this is it with all the starting pitcher injuries. It just didn't feel like we were going to bounce back, and we did, especially sweeping in Philly. That was probably the best surprise of the year for me.
Absolutely.
About as surprising as Yelich not going down because he'd been so injury prone. Let's turn to football for a sec here. The Packers wrapped up their OTAs in Green Bay. For the uninitiated, Mike, OTAs are
organized team activities, and
Ah.
so technically it's volunteer, but it's like you and I in a staff meeting for radio. It's volunteer, but it's a good idea to show up to the staff
Yes. Yeah.
meetings. You
Mhm.
know, it's a good idea.
It's
So
what I
we're
do. It's
watching.
the way I do it now is I do show up, I wave, I then turn my camera off. And then I get a few other things done. The meeting's wrapping up. I turn my camera on. I wave, and
Right,
nobody's the
right.
wiser. And so the Packers have an in person version of that.
They do, and so it's helmets and shorts, but they're out there 11 on 11, and Jordan Love, man, he threw a ball 60 yards in the air and hit Jaden Reed in stride, and it might be one of the best passes I've seen Love throw, in his whole time in Green Bay. I mean, he's starting to hit these long balls that were kind of 50-50 in the past. Then he hits Romeo Dobbs in the corner of the end zone on a 2-point conversion, and it's looking pretty sharp. Uh, you're a little disappointed because you're looking off to the sidelines, and there's Marshawn Lloyd, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year from USC. I got no data on this guy, Pat. I mean, he was injured so much last year and on IR. Then when he was coming off, it looked like they might get him into some of the games. He has appendicitis, so they end up shutting him down. Well, we get into these OTAs, and I'm like so anxious to see what this number 32 can do, behind Josh Jacobs. And there he's on the sidelines again, this time with Christian Watson, who's coming back from an ACL, apparently a hamstring. We asked LaFleur about it. He goes, listen, we've seen enough from this guy to know that he could be special. But yeah, it's true. It's he's got to figure out a way to make himself available and to get. And they said that he worked out really hard after the season. He's been in the facility working out every day and trying to improve his strength. Then they let Malik Willis, their backup quarterback, take over the offense, running the ones, and he's moving the ball. He's throwing a couple passes 25, 30 yards downfield and looking really sharp. And I leaned over to one of the guys from the Packers who are on the sidelines and said, let me ask you a question. Do the Pittsburgh Steelers have anybody in their roster right now that can play quarterback as well as Malik Willis? Because they didn't.
No.
Earlier in the week between Mason Rudolph and was it Will Howard, the kid from Ohio State they picked up like in the 6th round?
Mm-hmm.
And, point well taken. Like, what are they thinking in Pittsburgh? And then we get yesterday's news. Aaron Rodgers is going to come in today, sign a 1-year deal, and it looks like we'll be there for their mandatory minicamp next week in Pittsburgh.
This has been an ongoing, courtship, romance, whatever you want to call it, with Steelers coach Mike Tomlin. Clearly there's a mutual admiration society, but nobody knew if they were eventually, if he was going to put his name on a contract, and he finally did for 1 year. Now the question becomes, will he still be around? Is it week 8 when the Steelers play the Packers?
Yeah, a Sunday night football. Steelers, it'll be Jordan Love against Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh on NBC Sunday Night Football. And he starts out, his career with the Steelers week 1 against, his former team, the Jets. It'll be Justin Fields, the former Steelers quarterback, against Aaron. So that's going to be, the NFL schedulers know what they're doing. But, at the end of the day, Aaron can make things so complicated sometimes. And, he's done this thing where he used to criticize Brett Favre for this. Well, he's doing it where he finds out ways to get away from the OTAs and the mini camps. As a matter of fact, his last year in Green Bay, he was week 3 of training camp, complaining about some of these young receivers that he had around him that they picked up in the draft, like a Romeo Dobbs and all that. Like, these guys got to pick it up, right? And I've covered him all those years since he got drafted in Green Bay. And I said, Aaron, when Brett would come in here for training camp, it would take about 2.5 weeks for him to get going, right? And he smiled. Yes, that's true. I said, and you came here day 1 and you were ready to go. And he smiled again. That's right. Because he was in tip-top condition. He was ready to go. Unbelievable passes, unbelievable tricks with the football for day 1 of training camp. But if you're going to complain about these young receivers, wouldn't it help if you could come to some of the OTAs or the mini camp to, let them get more reps with you? And some of the beat writers later said, dude, do you have a death wish? He'll never talk to you again after a question like that. No, I've known this guy the whole time. And that's when he gave his kind of famous answer. He goes, look, the off season, those programs, OTAs, are all fine and good. That's the 100 level curriculum for our offense. When I get here, that's the 200 and the 300 level when I'm on the field, because we run a different offense when we're on the field. And that right there is the problem, because with the 30 hand signals, he makes it so complicated at times. That's some of the problems that some of these players around him have. But they love him as a guy and as a talent. It's just if they can somehow be on his same wavelength.
Yeah. We've got the AmFam Championship this weekend at TPC. You had the Women's U.S. Open last Sunday at Erin Hills. And I got 30 seconds left here for you to tell me about Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Pacers leading one time and at the very end.
Therese Halliburton does it again. The kid from Oshkosh North High School, they're down by 15 in the fourth quarter. Yep. He gets it within 4, so he comes down, a jump shot from the right-hand side, good, and the Pacers steal one. First lead of the night, 111 to 110 with 0.3 of a second left last night. Game 2 is Sunday night in the NBA Finals.
Oh, that counts. Yeah, winning at the buzzer there. We're talking Friday Sports with Mike Clemens. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
From Cassandra on YouTube, describe what's on the donut for us, Parker. For folks who might have missed it, Luke Mathers brought in donuts for National Donut Day are they from Greenbush? I couldn't quite see on the photo there from Mr. Mathers.
He did not say. I believe that they are. That's my guess.
I believe so too. And you've just been going crazy about what little bit remains of that donut there. Oh, s'more donut.
Here comes Luke too. He's excited about this.
He's making sure you don't get crumbs on the board. That's all.
No,
so
it's fine.
So we got to have some graham cracker, right?
Yeah, we got some. Ooh, what do you got?
Which one you got, Mathers?
Jelly. That's a good one.
I'm jelly. Yeah. You see what I did there? Yeah.
I see what you did there. That was pretty
good. A little
good.
graham cracker, a little chocolate.
Little graham cracker, a little chocolate, a little chocolate frosting. And I do believe there's got to be some marshmallow in there. I don't see it, but man, I taste it.
Dehydrated marshmallow powder. I don't know. Somehow or another, it's on there.
Yeah. It's good. Okay. It's good stuff.
No,
I'm a fan. I will be going back to this place. I will make sure I know where this is.
I'll tell you, I'll even give you a chance to eat it right now because I've got to do a little exercise here. If you'll indulge me for a moment.
I'll indulge, yeah.
See, as part of creating the new Sunday newsletter at Courier Newsroom, parent company of Up North News, they said, well, here's a launch kit. Here are all the ways to publicize, the Sunday morning newsletter. And one of them they suggested was an intro video saying, just talk a bit about yourself and, the product, in this case, the Sunday newsletter, and let people know they should do it. So I guess theoretically, I'm supposed to go do a selfie video, maybe. I'm supposed to go outside with my phone here and say, hey, I'm Pat Kreitlow. Da, da, da. Well, I got a camera right here. I got a willing audience right here, and I got judges in the audience to tell me if this works or not. Let's just do the video right now. We'll do it live, as Bill O'Reilly used to say. So let's give that a shot. What do you say? You ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, go ahead. We'll even give it a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News. You can catch me live right here on the radio across the Civic Media Radio Network weekday mornings from 6 to 9. Like right now, I'm exposing our radio listeners to this announcement about our new Sunday morning newsletter. It's called Sunday Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Just like the radio show is called Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. Very convenient, isn't it? On Sunday mornings, I put together a newsletter that wraps up some of the political stories that happened around Wisconsin over the past 7 days. Lots of it happening in our state capital, some of it happening in other places around our great state. I was an intern for my state legislator in middle school, and it was then, as a good little nerd that I am, I got an appreciation for state government and how very important it is. Funding our schools, making sure that our roads are in good shape, making sure we take care of our natural resources, and of course, our people. State government does all those things. I even went on to serve in state government in the legislature for a time. But I've always been a political reporter and broadcaster at heart, And I now have this opportunity to share what I learn each week with you. You don't have to watch the legislature week after week. I take care of that, tell you what's going on, and then engage you a bit with something called our question of the week, where I will ask a question about state politics. You'll respond by responding to the newsletter through email or sending us messages otherwise. I'll put those together and share those in the following week's newsletter. It's all called Sunday Mornings with Pat Kreitlow. You can find it on our website, upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe up in the top banner. You'll see all the newsletters that we offer here at Up North News. Click on the one for Sunday mornings. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Now, that was supposed to be 30 to 60 seconds, and I'm pretty sure, Parker, that ran so long, you finished your donut and probably stole Mather's donut and ate half of that as well. But yeah. I'll take care of that in what they call post-production.
Well done. A good video.
I just take care of all the best of the rest. You know?
Yeah, you got it.
I like that. We might actually make this a thing. We might just do a daily wrap-up video at this point. Tell the kids what we learned. What did we learn today?
We learned that we do it live.
We do it live. Tony, roads and resources, you nerd. Yeah. Yes, nerd. Totally guilty. I was that kid who it was, liking my social studies class so much that when I was running into issues at school and going to my school counselor, and he says, I know exactly what to do. And he picks up the phone and he calls my state legislator right then and there and says, I got this 8th grader with some time on his hands. We got to get him out of the classroom. Could you take him? And so every Thursday, I would just hop on a bus. I'd hop on a city bus. I'd put my dime in the fare box. That's how old I am. And take the bus out to the state capitol and basically open the mail, or I was like a gopher, a courier. I would just take things between, legislators' offices. And then I'd sit in on the sessions, on the floor sessions, like a page, essentially, and loved every moment of it and thought, I'd like to do this someday. And I did, as a reporter and then as a legislator. And now I get to share all this with all of you. And sometimes you respond, and sometimes you say, can we hear more about the donuts, please? But either way, I just try to bring a little something extra that you might not get out of state government. So if you're getting that from this radio show, if you're getting it from our newsletter, if you're getting it from our coverage on Up North News, well, that just makes me happy. And I'm glad you guys all are here. I know I'm hearing you now going, please, more donut. All right, more donut. The donut's gone, right?
Donut's gone. Donut was gone about halfway through your little soapbox doing your video there.
I know. And
sorry.
I think I deserve one. So
go to Quick Trip. Get a Glazer.
Guess where I'm going as part of my rounds today. I'm going to stop at the Chippewa Falls Post Office, check P.O. Box 27, 54729, see what kind of notes have been sent along. And along the way, I will have the radio on 93.5 The Tap here in the Chippewa Valley, because coming up next on Matt Nair on Air, guests include Dan Schaefer, Civic Media's political editor and founder of the Recombobulation Area. That's part of Matt Nair on Air coming up next. And then Todd Alba will have sports and positive thinking with Brady Ewing, a former Badger and NFL fullback, and so much more ahead coming across the Civic Media Radio Network. Parker Olson, have a great weekend.
Well, thank
See you Monday morning.
You too, Pat. I'll see you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of our program this week. I'm Pat Kreitlow, founding editor of Up North News, the Wisconsin outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network. Follow us at upnorthnewswi.com. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday morning here up north.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.